Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. The month of June ended with violence. 5 individuals were left nursing injuries after multiple gunshots were fired in the community of Marigot. Members of the community are still in shock, and some say they are still trying to determine what could have led to the incident. No official statement has been made by the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. Genevieve Gonzague has more.
Another community that has been marred by violence in the past week is the serene community of Marigot. On Tuesday 30th at approximately 11 p.m., gunshots were heard throughout the community. Members of that community are still in shock as they say incidents of this nature don't usually occur. We spoke to one bewildered community member.
About 7, I heard. That's what I heard. But I was in my bathroom brushing my teeth to go and sleep. You understand? Then I don't have nothing. But I have vehicle moving and moving and moving. But to tell you, I don't come out. Because my house is over there, I don't come out. You understand? When I don't come out, I don't have nothing again, but I see vehicle go up and down, bike go up and bike go down. So I say, I don't know what happened. But I say, since I am in my house, I'm not coming out because I don't know what happened. You understand? The next day I went and talked to my brother. My brother tell me, I say, you don't hear last night they had shooting. He tell me, yes, he heard 8 bullets. I say 7, I heard. He tell me it's 8. You understand? And after, the next day, a little boy go and buy a soft drink. When he come back, he say, hey, Marigot people that get shot. He 4 of the children that get shot. I say, which one of them? He say, he don't know the name of them. And a little while, when I go by the road, I hear they say the child there in the balcony there, they shoot all the bullets and all the things. So I say, if any one of them die, they say, no, no. But all of them get shot. But we don't know who shoot, who don't shoot. We don't know nobody that shoot. Because I don't want to talk underneath the mango tree there. They say and shot the people in that balcony.
Members of the community say they are still unaware of what transpired, while others were tight-lipped for fear of reprisal. Reports are that the 5 individuals who were shot are not known to be affiliated with gangs. The homeowner, whose residence was the scene of the shooting, declined to comment. Details surrounding the shooting and injuring of the 5 individuals are still unclear. The Royal St. Lucia Police Force say the matter is still under investigation. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
Prime Minister Alan Shastney says while much has been said about the HIA redevelopment project, particularly by the opposition, the deal is better than what was being pursued by the SLP. Under the former SLP administration, St. Lucia was pursuing a PPP, that's a public-private partnership, on the redevelopment of the airport. Prime Minister Shastney says the deal being pursued was a bad one.
Because they made a campaign promise they were going to take off the tax, they took off the tax. And so the fact that at the end of 5 years, they could not start the airport, Mr. Speaker, they only have one person to blame: themselves. Nobody else. And so what's the difference is when we came in, we met with IFC, and when they explained to us, and we understood clearly that the third-party person was bringing no money to the table, Mr. Speaker, and they were going to be using only the state's monies that are being gained by the tax. We asked ourselves, why would we do that? And when we met with the Taiwanese became very interested in lending us a development loan. So what is that loan, Mr. Speaker? They have lent us $100 million for 20 years. The first 5 years is a moratorium. So what it means is we don't pay any principal payments for the first 5 years.
Leader of the opposition, Philip J. Pierre, rose to clarify the deal that the former SLP administration had planned to pursue. He points to a share of gross profits and no tax incentives for the developer as clauses that would have benefited the government.
There is a share of the gross revenues in that agreement. Every cent that is collected on the airport, the SLASPA will have got a share of the gross revenues before tax, gross, before expenses, number one. Number two, there has been no PPP partner had been chosen. What the Prime Minister is talking about is a draft agreement where there were 3 interested parties. One of them had pulled out, and there were 2 more, and the discussions were being held with them.
The Prime Minister also addressed the criticisms of burdening the country with a huge amount of debt on this project.
I don't know if it's misleading or if it's just not understanding that this is not a debt to the state. This is a debt to SLASPA. Government guaranteed the debt to SLASPA. But SLASPA is the one taking the loan. Government agreed to assign the $35 to SLASPA, and they gave them a guarantee for the debt. But it's SLASPA's debt, and none of the payments that are being made towards the airport are coming from the recurrent revenue, or better known as the consolidated fund. Not 1 cent. The money that's being used to pay the loan of the airport is coming from the $35, which is in a lockbox under the control of SLASPA, and now also under the control of the bank in New York.
The leader of the opposition also refuted claims that the debt is not on the state.
The SLASPA debt is a contingent liability on the government of St. Lucia. So it is not correct, it is not a fact to say that because the debt was taken by SLASPA, the government did not have any share. The debt is in the country's debt profile, and the contingent liability of SLASPA, WASCO, all of these are in the debt profile. I just thought I'd make it.
Continue.
According to the Prime Minister, the $35 airport tax has so far accumulated to over $80 million in a lockbox. He says it means that even with 0 tourist arrivals, the lockbox assures that the loan can be paid. This, he says, is why the government cannot break the lockbox as suggested by the opposition, as it would be seen as a breach of the loan agreement. There has not been an overwhelming chorus of opposition to the policies put forward by the Prime Minister in his budget policy statement. But does that equate to the budget being feasible? Some are still dissecting the budget and its implications. For one civil engineer and contributor on current affairs, the budget certainly has bright spots, but these, he believes, are based on a false premise. He argues that the government has 2 fundamental strikes against it with its budget.
Former chief engineer during the Compton administration, John Peters, was a guest on the hot seat with Crystal Riviere on Wednesday night. He was asked to offer his assessment of the Prime Minister's 2020-2021 budget. He says the revenue projections are the ticklish issue. He notes that the June reopening of St. Lucia's borders clearly did not go as anticipated by the government. This, he says, presents a problem for the budget projections.
The question that we have to face now is, you have made assumptions in a budget for revenue stream in a COVID environment. Those assumptions would have been based on the opening of our borders, some engagement within the tourism sector in terms of people coming in, and within a particular timeline. So let's assume that the assumption was in June, we would have opened our borders, flights would have been coming in, tourists would be coming in, you will have your hotel accommodation tax, your streams of revenue coming back to the government. That didn't occur. We have pushed it back to July. But then we also have to consider what is happening in your major source market, right? In your major source market, the UK or Europe, as well as the United States. Right now, the state of New York is saying to someone who lives in Florida, if you come into our state, we're going to quarantine you for 14 days. That is within the United States. And most of our flights are coming from the states now in the United States where it is moving like a wildfire. So there's a strong possibility that even the assumptions that were made in June that were shifted to July may have to be shifted to November, December, or January next year.
He says assumptions made about revenue when crafting the budget are now proving unattainable. The other major problem, which he says has faced every administration, is the rate of implementation of budget policies. He says many great budgets have been presented over the years, and very few have actually been implemented.
Go back to 3 years ago and look at the projects that were started 3-4 years ago and the rate of implementation. Even if you take some of the more significant and noteworthy projects that we have, all of them have suffered from implementation. It's a disease, an implementation disease. And therefore, if you're looking at a budget, one, a revenue stream that is going to support your projects, and two, your implementation capacity, you have two negatives working against you.
What would you say then, Mr. Peter, to the people who call people like you skeptics and claim that you're standing in the way of a new St. Lucia, that the vision of this Prime Minister is to create a new St. Lucia that is unlike what we've seen in the past, and he's charting a new way forward?
I don't think I should be ever considered a skeptic. I think my history, both in the public service and in the private sector, demonstrates that, you know, I have taken chances, as it were, if you want to say that word. The very fact I'm speaking to you in our atmosphere is a chance you take. So no, I'm not against it. The Millennium Highway, for example, Millennium Highway was developed when I was chief engineer, and I was severely criticized in supporting that particular project. That project was birthed within the Ministry of Works. Right? The initial concept was to drive a tunnel from Hospital Road to Cul-de-sac. And that was Sir John Compton's dream. And I had to be saying to him, it is not feasible. And he listened, he was convinced, we came back. I walked from Hospital Road to the end there, through the bushes at the time, tracking where we can possibly put the road. And that, where we see there is a Millennium Highway, was heavily criticized, both by the opposition party at the time, by the people of Kubari, who said they didn't want any road coming through their property. And it stands there as testimony that you can push through and get something done.
Peters has been a proponent of scaling back on some of government's capital projects, like the HIA redevelopment project. He says government must temper its spending and prepare for the worst-case scenario. 3 major water projects will continue in this financial year in order to achieve water security in St. Lucia. Prime Minister and Minister for Finance Alan Chasney laid out the plans in his budget to increase St. Lucia's capacity for the safe collection, storage and distribution of water. The Prime Minister explained that the John Compton Dam project focuses on the reforestation and stabilization of 60 hectares of land in 1 year and 98 hectares in the 2nd year to help reduce land erosion and siltation on the John Compton Dam. In terms of the desilting of the dam, the Prime Minister explained that the construction of the disposal pit to take the silt from the dam has been completed, and the long-awaited desilting operations will be completed in this financial year. Under this project, the approximately 1.7 million cubic meters of silt which has settled in the dam and which has reduced its capacity by more than 50% will be removed. Meanwhile, the Dennery North Water Project will improve water quantity, quality, and reliability to residents. The project was undertaken in 2 phases. The first phase concluded in February 2018, and the 2nd phase of the project commenced in January 2020. The residents of Vieux-Fort are also on the list to receive a much better water supply, as the Vieux-Fort North Water Supply Project seeks to provide a reliable and sustainable supply of potable water. The project comprises the construction of 2 river intake structures. It also includes 2 treatment plants, one at Grace and the other at Beausejour in Vieux Fort. Due to the impact of climate change, the Prime Minister has stressed that these interventions are necessary and that the government is also investigating the possibility of establishing desalination plants at strategic locations on the island. This is the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Stay with us. There's more coming up after the break.